Hello and welcome to Piano Shack with me, Woody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now, recently my curiosity was piqued by a new product that was launched to the market. It's a groovebox basically that emulates the sounds, the sound chip and the algorithms of the old SEGA Mega Drive, the SEGA Genesis if you were in the US. So this groovebox has 6 tracks of FM synthesis. Yes, the old SEGA Genesis did use a sound chip by Yamaha with a very similar architecture to the DX7. Actually, it was a 4-operator FM synthesis engine, more like the FB01, but yeah, definitely Yamaha FM synth goodness. This groovebox has 6 tracks of that, plus PCM drums and samples and stuff like this, and it sounds so like the original Genesis Mega Drive that I grew up playing in the early 90s. Apologies for the somewhat long-winded backstory, but here's the product in mind. The Sonicware Mega Synthesis. Cuckoo has done a nice tutorial on this. Let's have a quick listen to some of the sounds.
Revive the sonic sensation of the golden era. Mega Synthesis!
Yeah, you get the idea. Those drums, those FM sounds, so cool. And this groovebox allows you to program your own little game-inspired musical ideas. Yeah, love it. So much wanted one of these. But when I went to the web store, they were completely out of stock and back ordered. And that led me to start thinking, which is a good thing I suppose, because I started to think, well, can I achieve something similar with the gear that I already have? And spoiler alert, yes I can. This does it absolutely perfectly. And I'll show you how. Sorry if I'm coming across as a bit buzzing and excited, but this is super cool. And this process of doing research into how to accomplish this has opened a really fascinating, interesting, what's the word when you dig down? Hang on. The rabbit hole, a really interesting rabbit hole that I think some of you will find fascinating as well if you're into these retro video console game sounds. Is it really true? Can this thing emulate the sounds of the SEGA Mega Drive? It seems to me like there's nothing that this thing can't do. I see it as a super duper open-ended sound module with a kick-ass sampler and groovebox sequencer built in. But let's head over to the computer and I'll show you how to do it. So why don't we start our journey here actually with a description of the sound chips used in the SEGA Mega Drive. It's called the YM2612 and yes, it's by Yamaha. So of course this is related to Yamaha's FM sound chips that they used in their synthesizers. It's a 6-channel FM synthesizer used in several game and computer systems, also in the arcade machines as well, Outrun for example. The games console did contain some other sound chips as well. It had a PCM sound chip for playing back some really crusty samples, as you may remember, the Sega. So the next step of my journey when I was trying to figure out how to get those sounds onto the Machine Plus was to discover this amazing resource, Project 2612. Is that a 2 or a Z? I think it's probably a 2, same as the name of the sound chip, which I've already forgotten. What is this all about, I hear you ask? This is absolutely fascinating. What people have done is downloaded or ripped the ROMs from the cartridges, the SEGA Mega Drive cartridges. They've ripped the ROMs and they've extracted all of the audio data from the, what would it have been? The source code, the assembly language source code that was addressing the sound chips. And then they would analyze the data on the ROM cartridge and extract the presets that would program the FM sound chip and also the musical compositions. And all that could be exported as a, stored or archived as a VGM file or VGZ that contains the presets used to address the sound chip and the musical compositions as MIDI data. Of course, the original console wasn't using MIDI, but for convenience, it's been now converted to MIDI on this site. For example, let's go into downloads. Let's go for Sonic the Hedgehog. Why not? Perhaps the most well-known of all of the games. I'm just going to find it here. So as you can see, every single Mega Drive game ever made has been ripped and exported to this MIDI and FM synthesis format. For example, if we click on Sonic the Hedgehog, then we have all of the tracks or all of the levels and themes in this VGZ format. And we can just click here and download them, and that gives us all of the FM synth presets and the MIDI data. For example, you can play them here. Okay, Green Hill Zone. You're just hearing my lav mic at the moment, apologies for that, but we'll listen to these in glorious high fidelity, or maybe low fidelity, because that's what we're aiming for here on the Machine Plus. I always thought that Strider had the most amazing soundtrack, and what a great game it was as well. Just take a listen to some of this stuff. Not quite as poppy as Sonic the Hedgehog. Another game that I really enjoyed the soundtrack to was Batman. So just pick your favourite games and download them, and that's the first step. I'll show you some shortcuts later on in the video. So the Batman zip file we just downloaded contains a whole bunch of VGZ files, one for each level or musical theme in the game. But how do we convert these to something that the Machine Plus will understand? And in fact, the nice thing about this process is that it'll work for other VST synths as well. You can get these presets and use them in DexEd, for example, or the Arturia DX7 emulation, or FM8 on your PC. So I started Googling, of course, how to convert those to SysX, because that's the format that we need, right? That is understood by all of our VST synthesizers and DX7 emulations. For all you FM lovers out there, this gentleman, Dr. Washington, I just converted pretty much every Sega Genesis Mega Drive for those across the pond into OPM files, which can be loaded into Sam's Fantastic. There are lots of different ways to play these VGZ and VGM files that you download from that resource I showed you earlier. But this guy, check this out. He's downloaded them all as an OPM formatted, or he's uploaded them and made these available as OPMs. But check this out, SysX files can be imported directly into FM8. So here he's done the hard work. For all of those sounds that we've just downloaded, he's converted them to SysX and done all the hard work for us. The process is very straightforward. Whoops, I've zoomed in a little bit, so it's a bit jumpy. You can go to this folder here, import SysX. You do that, choose the game level that you want to import, and FM8 will convert it to FM8 presets. It works really well. So here, for example, we've done it for Batman. I did it for Batman Stage 1, and we have about 8 sounds. Looks like. I just want to show you something interesting about these sounds. As I mentioned earlier, these are 4 operator sounds. Now, the DX7 and FM8 are 6 operator sounds, but they can play 4 operator sounds without any problem at all. So if we go over to the expert mode, you can see that only 4 operators are activated for this patch. Let's step through if I've got the right buttons. You can see for all of these presets that we've just imported from the Mega Drive, they're all just using 4 operators 4 columns. One thing I've noticed that they do come across rather quiet. So now we have FM8 presets, and it's very simple for me to drag them over to the Machine Plus and play them here standalone. But there's a few issues. These are very low volume, and if I import hundreds of games and hundreds of levels, I don't really want to adjust thousands of presets manually. I guess I could write a script. I am a developer, a programmer, that's something I will think about, but I found an easier way, even easier. That started me thinking, maybe somebody has done all this work before and created the FM8 patches directly from the Sega Mega Drive ROM cartridge rips. And this gentleman, Hunter Bridges, has started to do it. Looks like he did this quite a few years ago and didn't get further than just importing or converting one game, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but this in itself contains 1,000 patches, more or less, which is pretty much all you need, and all these have been by hand and with scripts fine-tuned so they work perfectly in FM8. Let's take a look, see what it says. The FM8 Sega Genesis collection. The voices of 16-bit to your fingertips. You need FM8 to use these. Yes, these are FM8 specific now, so these won't work in DexEd. I've done a bit of touching up on these patches, namely volume. That's what I noticed. The volume is low. Octave matching. The voice is more appropriate for general purpose use. We'll put this to the test in a minute. He was intending, I think, to convert many games, but he just did Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but I think that's good enough because that contains all of the kind of styles and patches that you need to create this kind of music. And here we've gone into the repository here, and you can see, for example, it's the same kind of thing. We have many different levels for this particular game, but he's actually labeled everything with what type of sound it is, which is really helpful. You didn't get that automatically, so he's done a lot of work here. You can see thousands of sounds. We've got thumb pianos, rock organ, resonant glass, metallic EP. So everything categorized, sorted, and just look how many presets we have here. It's just absolutely nuts. For every level, we have the presets that were used to make the musical sounds. If you were wondering how to get the samples and the presets over to the Machine Plus, just go into your settings here. It's been a little while since I did this. Okay, there it is. You've got to go into the system page and then just click storage, and it will show up on your PC. There you go, as a drive. That was nice and easy, and check this out. Here we have all of the FM presets for Sonic and Knuckles, all of the various game levels, intros, outros, themes, all here, ready to be loaded and played. So let's connect this to my DAW, and we'll do that now, and I'll show you how to make these more lo-fi as well, because right now they are a little bit too pristine to be an accurate emulation of the crusty old Sega Genesis. Okay, I'll just step through and play some of the sounds from the Angel Island level. Maybe a bass. Never played this game, by the way, so I don't know how it goes in reality. But you can hear, yes, this is the DNA for sure of the Sega Mega Drive. Sounds brilliant. Exactly what we need. Oh. Very basic sounds, of course. This is 4-operator FM synthesis, but this is exactly what was used back in the day. Very nice. Now, you might be tempted to throw effects on this like reverb and chorus, but if you're trying to emulate the vibe of the vintage games console, you don't want to do this because it didn't have any of those effects. But it didn't sound this clean and nice either, did it? So let's throw a lo-fi bit crusher effect on this and see how it transforms the sounds and makes it much more authentic. Activating lo-fi plugin now. Absolutely perfect. Let's listen to just a few more. And then I'll show you the next piece of the puzzle that we need to fix to get this authentic sound tracks. Yeah, you could definitely develop those ideas further and make a soundtrack. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't buy that GROOVEBOX. Everything that we need is right here, and probably even better. There's one more thing that we need to source. Now, the Sega Mega Drive had a PCM chip and it could play very primitive and low resolution samples as well. So we need to get hold of those. They were often used for the drums, percussion and sound effects. I actually found these on YouTube. Just search for Sega Genesis drum samples mixers and you'll find mixers Mega Sega Genesis drum sample pack. And there's a download link as well. Let's take a listen. You get the idea. These are perfect, the crunchy sounds that we needed. Now, it feels a bit cheating perhaps to use samples. These are actually samples of the Sega Genesis, but it's the easiest way to get this. And it's the end result that counts, I suppose. And these do sound deliciously lo-fi. Let's skip ahead. Absolutely perfect. Remember, the Machine Plus is a sampler basically, so we just import all of these samples over to the internal disk over here on the Machine Plus, and yep, there we go. Pretty much good to go. There are thousands of samples here, by the way. So what you need to do then is always do a virus scan when downloading anything like this from an unknown third party, but there is a file link here. I've also seen these available on Google Drive. Make sure you get the latest version. This is many years ago, decade ago. And there have been some newer versions of this library with even more samples. But yeah, everything that you need. Okay, I just want to scroll through some of the drum sounds and the effects. These are the samples that we've just imported over. Let's, we can step through them. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, these are really crunchy and low resolution, exactly as they would have been back in the day. Remember, these are sampled from the Mega Drive or from the ROMs in an emulator, I suppose. Beautiful. Let's disable that lo-fi effect, because these are lo-fi as they are. So I'm just going to bypass that for now. Let's go back to the browser. On the Machine Plus, you can choose where to put the effects, if you want them on a particular sound or a particular group of sounds, or on the master bus. So I guess this kind of thing, you'd probably put that lo-fi effect on the master bus for best effect, but you can do it as you want. Then adjust the level of the effect, of course, if you want to do that. Maybe one sound you don't want it to be quite so lo-fi. Yeah, you get the idea. And look, thousands and thousands of samples, making this an incredibly good toolkit for recreating your favourites or your own original SEGA GENESIS game musical themes. Well, as they say, that was a real rabbit hole I ventured into and took you with me. I hope you found it as fascinating as I did. I'm really into the retro gaming and these old video game music and so on, and I look forward to using all of these sounds now to good effect and actually creating some Sega Mega Drive style game themes, compositions, soundtracks, whatever you want to call them, and I'll share that with you as we go. So if you enjoyed the video, please do consider subscribing for more like this, and thank you so much if you already have. By the way, I have a video all about loading DX7 factory presets onto this as well. Totally possible, with a few little hiccups along the way, but I have a video about that as well, which I'll link in the description if I remember. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Cheerio.